And when you love to give, you're actually better at sales because it makes you more human and it makes you more approachable. And I think ultimately it makes you more effective because I'm pretty effective at sales. I don't have a lot of the skill sets. I haven't been taught these skill sets. I just kind of go in and I just feel things out. It's just how I do everything pretty much. It's probably the craziest way to do it, but it's just the way I do it. So my approach certainly is to lead with giving.
Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. I've got a special guest for you guys today, and I finally get to return the favor in bringing Marc Ebinger, the CEO of Crükus Virtual Staffing, to the show. I've been on his show twice now. He does an amazing in-person show in San Antonio. And Marc, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, man. Good to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, you've had me on your podcast twice now. It's a multi-host podcast, and it's only in person, which I appreciate. Changes the complete dynamic of the show. And the first time we met, I think was it Black Rifle Coffee or was it Starbucks?
Probably. Yeah, probably Black Rifle.
Yeah. And now, I love that place. I can't go there without getting a t-shirt, a hat, something. I was up in where was I? Fort Worth. And I went to the one up there, and they were actually taking donations for a bag of coffee for the local retirement home. They do little stuff like that. That's really cool. But anyways, I think you introduced me to them, so I appreciate you for that.
Yeah, they're good. They're pro-veteran, pro-first responder. So, prior military and also retired first responder. So it's a good fit for me. It's my people. So I'm comfortable there.
Absolutely, brother. So, speaking of first responders, right? You're doing virtual staffing now, and you're doing a lot of networking events now. But what did you do before that?
Well, I was in the Air Force for 5 years where I was a glorified gate guard, did some aircraft security during Desert Storm, which was kind of cool because you got to see the planes coming in and out. Of course, it would have been cooler to fly them, but I mean, we do what we can. And then I joined the San Antonio Police Department back in 1993. And, I worked all over San Antonio, north, south, east, west. I did all kinds of different jobs. I worked homicide. I worked internal affairs. I retired as a sergeant. I actually was a sergeant for 16 years. So I got to do a lot of cool stuff. The real police work that gets done, and had a good career. And then, ultimately ended up on radio on KTSA here in San Antonio as an independent for 15 months before they kicked me off platform because my show was too successful and it was taking business away from their advertising efforts. It was funny. It was an interesting conversation, but did that. Yeah. And then, I started staffing while I was there, and the rest is history.
Beautiful, brother. I was looking at your Facebook page here, and it's full of networking opportunities and, honestly, you doing what you do best, which is highlighting other businesses. And in terms of, have you really outlined that as a prospecting tool? If I put enough people on, if I have enough podcasts and I get enough people talking and bring business to other people, eventually that'll return, or what's the thought behind that?
Oh, that's absolutely the thought. The whole thing was strategic from the get-go, was like, hey, I want to get in front of business owners without having to cold call them. And I want to be able to build some kind of relationship at a high level, because when you call them and say, hey, would you like to be on the radio? When I started, it was KTSA. It was like, I mean, that's like, if you say no to getting on the radio on KTSA, I mean, I don't even know what to say to that. So we get a lot of yeses, right? And, that was the start of me being able to build relationships with people. And then part of that process is, hey, my team sends out an email follow-up saying, Marc, I'd love to schedule a 15-minute sit down with you, just to make sure you understand what services that he offers, and see if there's any other kind of, way we can help each other out. So it's a great tool to get that introduction, to get that, that FaceTime to promote what I'm doing. If it's a good fit, great. If it's not, maybe they can refer me to somebody else down the road. But it's been very strategic from the beginning, although it shifted and molded towards virtual staffing. And then I got better at it as I went along, but it's always something I think we sharpen. But I think any entrepreneur, we like to think of stuff to do and create things and try things. And this is really what I wanted to lead with, was giving, which is ultimately what it is. I'm giving you exposure. And now, with the podcast, over 26,000 subscribers on YouTube, millions of views across, social media. It's a great platform. It's easy for me to, invite somebody on, and people are eager to get on. We got a waiting list for months and months. I think we're booking into February now, 6 months out. It's a good platform to build relationships at an even higher level. And then, of course, the events, which you know about. We just layering in things. I'm doing smaller things like 6 people experiences at Top Golf now, where I strategically invite people to come and visit. It's like, I think we should always be looking to sharpen our network and looking for opportunities for new ideas on the networking or mixers or whatever it is you're into. We should always be creative in that space. It just keeps it fun.
I couldn't agree more. And speaking of the events that you're doing, one of the first events that I went to that you hosted was Let's Talk Business podcast mixer, right? And right away I noticed, running an event is not easy, especially, I don't even think you had Samantha's help at that point. You know what I'm saying? So
no, actually we did for the first one. We had Samantha's help on the,
okay,
I was so lucky to run. It's just, that's the thing. I get lucky, I think, at a lot of things, but I think it's because I'm looking, but she helped us out from the first one.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the funny thing. You put in the work and you get lucky. That's how it works, right? But anyway, so I show up to the mixer and, I'm networking, doing my normal thing. And then we finally see each other, we connect. And the first question you ask me is, who do you need to be introduced to? And this has been an interesting concept for the last, I would say, year or so, ever since I got introduced to Donnie Boivin and then introduced to you as well. Y'all ask that question, and I think it's a paramount question when it comes to networking the right way. Most people are used to networking, passing business cards, talking to a bunch of people and hoping something falls out of the other end, right? But in becoming the conduit the way that you do, you end up becoming an asset to somebody's business without needing the sale necessarily from them. But what happens often is the reciprocation, right? And so I guess walk us through when you're at an event, just from a sales standpoint, because I think people that are listening for sales need to hear this when it comes to networking. What is your standard operating procedure when you show up to a networking event?
Well, first thing, it's not predatory. I think that's important. If you're looking to pounce on somebody and cram what you're trying to do down their throat, nobody likes that, right? Nobody likes to be sold. We all like to buy, right? I love to buy stuff, man. I mean, just ask my wife. I spent way too much at lunch today because, I'm buying other people drinks, and it's like, hey, let's just have a good time. I love to buy stuff and I love to give. And I think that actually makes me a better salesperson. When you love to give, you're actually better at sales because it makes you more human and it makes you more approachable. And I think ultimately it makes you more effective, because I'm pretty effective at sales. I don't have a lot of the skill sets. I haven't been taught these skill sets. I just kind of go in and I just feel things out. That's just how I do everything pretty much. It's probably the craziest way to do it, but it's just the way I do it. So my approach certainly is to lead with giving. It's just easier for me to have a conversation with somebody if I can give you something that you want, which is when I go up to somebody and I'm like, who are you looking to connect with or whatever? That's a genuine question. I am not just giving up fluff. I'm looking to serve in some kind of a way, because I know it's going to enhance our relationship. It's going to increase my likability factor. The trust is going to grow. And there's almost a guilt that can come with, not that that's a main thing, but there's just a byproduct of, Mark did something for me. I want to do something for Mark. And when that opportunity comes across, they're excited to actually do it. It's not like, it's like, oh no, you need to this is a great opportunity for, for virtual staffing or whatever. Right. And let me connect you with Mark. He's fantastic, blah, blah, blah. It's those kinds of things that happen, but there's a different energy about it when somebody's reciprocating than, when somebody feels like obligated. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. No, it's the law of reciprocity, basically happening in real time, 100%. So, yeah, and that's one of the things I noticed when I had my own event is now that I had that experience with you and, the training that we got through the other networking group that I'm in, I was connecting the whole time that I wasn't on stage or I wasn't, doing anything to support the event. I was connecting sponsors to potential clients, sponsors to potential clients. And now they've already said, hey, we want to come back next year. We got 2 clients at your event. You introduced us to them. We appreciate that. And so it's it really is a cheat code when it comes to networking or events or just being in a group of people. And you, like everything else in sales, it transfers over to real life too. If you genuinely listen to your wife when she's talking, you know what I mean? You can better serve her, right? And if you genuinely connect your friends and family to people that they need to connect with, you can better serve them as well. And so that's a big part of this, right? So the virtual staffing, how did that even come about? I know it's trendy now. A lot of people are doing it in terms of, my team is virtual as well. And so they support me in consulting. They support me in the podcast business, as well as this podcast. Our producer, L, came through one of our VAs as a referral as well. And so it's exploding for sure. But why did you decide you wanted to be on the business side of it?
Well, I got into it through necessity. I'm a product of the service. I'm like, hey, I need some help. I don't want to hire local because it's too expensive and it's too cumbersome. There's lots of rules, regulations, red tape, all of this stuff that I didn't want to have to hire somebody so I could hire people, kind of a thing. But really it was about budget because a retired police salary is not really enough to, just go spending money on, $15 to $20 employees plus all the other stuff. And I had been stationed in the Philippines back in 1991 when Mount Pinatubo blew up, and I was there through that. And I didn't know that. I got to know Filipinos quite well while I worked town patrol, so out in Angeles City, just outside Clark Air Base, and I got to know the people there, and love the culture, love the folks there. The work ethic's really good. They're a very familial people. They're family oriented. They are servant hearted, very respectable. So when I was looking to do that, I started looking towards the Philippines, and I found there's services out there that do that. And I was in the hustle mode. I was in the DIY mode. So I was all in on, figuring it out as I went along. And it was a bumpy ride, but I ended up finding the right person. She was with me for, about 20 months before she went on to New Zealand to go teach, which is a great opportunity for her. But so I just got into it through necessity. And when I did it, I was like, this is amazing. When I can get an employee for a fraction of the cost it is here in the United States and still be a good boss and give a good wage to somebody in another country, it's a win-win, and it's a feel-good business. Although I have been asked the question, and I've even been challenged, how dare you hire outside the United States or whatever, especially being a veteran and all that. I'm like, yeah, you don't pay my bills. So how about you don't tell me what I should or should not be doing to be competitive in my space. So I'm going to do or not do. I'm not going to fall on my sword just because you think I should. Yeah. So those kind of conversations, look, I don't mind challenges. They're kind of fun, actually, to deal with those kinds of things. But at any rate, I started doing it for other businesses, and it really kind of took off. And I've probably done over 100 hires, and I love it. We have a really good culture in Crükus that is client first, VA second, company third. We take really good care. My HR team is really, really on point when it comes to making sure that our VAs are very well taken care of. If they have issues, they're addressed, which creates a culture of win-win-win, right? The client wins, the VA wins, and then Crükus wins. And then, of course, my team vicariously wins through all of that. we're doing a good business day in and day out. I'm very prominent in the business community. I'm a public figure. And so my name and my reputation means a lot. So all that to say that I'm held at a very, very high standard when it comes to accountability, which is fine because my business is a great business that I'm excited to tell anybody and everybody about. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then also the heart by which I approach this business. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you for walking us through that. And it's interesting what you're saying about the accountability piece, right? Being a public figure and knowing that if a client experience goes south, that it's a lot easier for them to jump on Facebook and rant about it or something like that, where you're so in sync with social media, LinkedIn, the events and everything. They know, somebody that was maybe malicious would know how they could hurt you in that sense. It's not just going on Google and posting one star review. It's shouting it from the mountaintops of networking in San Antonio, right? Because that's where you're based at. And so it kind of like pushes you a little further, than your people, your family, and everything else. It's like, oh, that I need to be 1%, 2%, 3% even better because I've got this insane accountability being a public figure. But it comes with its benefits too, right? You can't really talk about Mark without talking about VA staffing, and you can't really talk about Let's Talk Business podcast or networking in San Antonio without talking about Mark either. So it's kind of all tied together, and I think works beautifully for you. So my question would be, I recommend VAs to my clients sometimes, or they already have them on their team, whatever the case is. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about what you were saying earlier about the impact that you make when you hire a VA. I mean, that dollar goes so much further for them than it does for us, right? And so I've had some of my team tell me that they're taking care of like 2 generations of their family basically in one home, and they're the main source of income. That's really cool. That's one piece of it. The second is the culture is completely different in terms of work, right? I mean, everybody's college educated, at least everybody that's applying for the positions that we have out there. And then when they get into the position, it is very much like they work their butts off. You know what I mean? And it is not just being honest here, our American culture is soft, when it comes to work, right? And so when you outline a position or something like that, it's a lot of excuses and things. But as long as you have a good SOP in place, at least my experience is my VA team executes every single time. There is no excuses. They get it done. And they've done that in light of bad weather, internet outages, whatever the case may be. And so it's been fantastic. So what do you recommend when it comes to making sure your VAs have good direction? How do you coach clients on that? That way they can get an amazing ROI that you and I are getting.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of having a Filipino HR team. Because they're there, they understand the culture way better than I do. Their customer service is very, very hands-on, so that my clients have a resource available to them. And that's one of the benefits of using our service, right? It's not just a placement service, but it's an HR, payroll, and time management service, right? It's kind of all in. Okay. You come in, you get the perfect VA for the tasks that you need to get done, that fits your culture, that is the right personality type, that has that hustle muscle, the go-getter attitude that you're looking for. And just, it really is going to make your job easier, not give you something else to manage and to wrestle with when you're just trying to get stuff done. We're here to make things easier. When you have an HR team on the backside of that, that makes sure that those relationships are held. Like what holidays are important, how to handle things culturally when it comes to communication with Filipinos, because they're not really confrontational. So if you come at them a little too harsh, they could quit earlier than they would have, right? Down. I mean, they can shut down, they can ghost you, they can whatever. It's because they don't, in their eyes, that what we might just feel is a bit more like in your face, brotherly love could be certainly construed as a bit more, offensive or overbearing or something that spooks them off. And so our team's there to help be the bad guy if we need to on correcting behavior or mitigating some kind of disciplinary matter, but also doing it in a way that is culturally acceptable.
Yeah.
and from other Filipinos. So it just fits very well in that. And we've saved so many relationships because of our HR team is able to do that, to be that middleman for that client VA experience. So certainly, having the right fit for the job, giving them the right income to make sure that they're taken care of, within boundaries, and then the culture. And then I think one of the aspects too that you were alluding to, our American culture is a bit soft. One of the reasons for that, in my opinion, at least in the workplace, is the entrepreneur or the business owner's inability to handle turnover and firing the way that they would want to handle it, because there's so many rules in place that protect the worker. It actually can cause more friction in that space than is necessary, which leads to a cultural decline when it comes to work ethic, because you're entitled to things. You're entitled to your job. You're entitled to this and that, which puts an undue burden on the business owner. Again, from a business owner's perspective, it puts an undue burden on our side, which in today's day and age, you can alleviate that whole problem by hiring overseas. And if it's a remote job that can be handled, or a job that can be done remotely, why wouldn't you do that? And I think that this is going to be a nice wake-up call for our American culture on things like that, because a lot of work can be done remotely.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's always going to, well, and I come across them all the time, especially on the sales side. There's always going to be jobs that we can't send overseas, you know what I mean? Or they need to understand the culture. They need to understand nomenclature, and all that can be trained eventually, right? But there's things that I feel like aren't going to be able to outsource, at least yet. I think maybe a few years from now, as they become part of your training process and other VA companies' training process, where they ingrain them in our culture a little bit, and then they understand pop culture references, or contracting is a tough space for a VA to operate inside of, in terms of non-SOP items like account management, sales, that type of stuff. So are you guys headed in that direction where you're seeing, all right, there's ways to involve VAs in things like appointment setting? Maybe are y'all seeing some success there?
Oh yeah, that's like a bread and butter item right there when it comes to lead generation, appointment setting, appointment confirmations, rescheduling. I mean, all that stuff takes a lot of time. And if the business owner is doing that, or a C-suite executive is doing that, it's like, that is not a good use of that time. So those types of things are easy. That's the low hanging fruit, in my opinion, that if you're an entrepreneur out there and you're doing those kinds of, even if you're a high level sales rep and you're doing those kinds of things, you're behind the curve. You need to get somebody else to help you in that space. It can make you twice as effective, give you twice as much of your time back when you start cloning yourself to take care of the administrative tasks that you don't need to be bothering with. Those things are easy to replace. Now, here's another piece to that needs to be considered. And that is, when a business, let's say you take a plumbing company, for example, and they've got, let's say, 3 positions within that business, it could all be done remotely, right? And let's say they're paying $50,000 a year for each job. It's $150,000 for those 3 positions. Well, they can staff all 3 of those positions for $50,000. They can cut their cost by a third. That leaves $100,000 available to invest in tradesmen and tradeswomen that can go out and do the job that needs to be done in the field that are not outsourceable. So these trade skills, as an example, any business that has boots on the ground folks that need to get work done, that's great. We're always going to have those, but you can actually be more selective and pay them more by simply redoing how you're handling your remote potential jobs in the business.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of spaces in CAD designs, in insurance. What is it called? Where you're fighting with the insurance company back and forth. I forgot.
Claims. Yeah. Processing. Oh, that's
claims.
Yeah. I have one.
Claims. Yeah.
One of my clients has 3 VAs and he's fixing to go to 4 VAs. And it's all handling, claims processing and stuff. It's the stuff that an licensed insurance agent doesn't have to do, but it's those death by 1,000 cuts that happens that keeps them ineffective, and actually, kind of bottlenecks their business a bit.
Absolutely, brother. Well, what do you guys have? I know kind of you have this wide top of the funnel, right? And so it's the podcast, it's the events. You're very, very active in BNI. So that I feel like those are all the sources of your networking, your connections, and I would assume where most of your leads are coming from. Are you doing anything else on the lead gen side?
So, doing a lot on LinkedIn. So I've got one of
Okay.
my VAs that handles that. So I'm growing. I'm over 2,000 connections now. I'm doing about
Mhm.
150 new connections a month. And these are very targeted, very specific. I'm looking to connect with specific industries. And then
Mhm.
once we do the connection, then I move towards having a one-on-one meeting with them. So that we can collaborate, because again, it's strategic. I'm looking for potential referral partners, people that I can pay money to give me business.
Right.
And other staffing companies are a great source for that, because they're maybe doing boots on the ground staffing. Every once in a while they get a request for something that can be handled virtually, and then I can get referrals for that, and I get them quite often now. So that's being strategic on LinkedIn in a way that works well.
Mhm.
Plus local connections, again, ending up top of funnel, which is where a lot of my
Yeah.
networking is, and then trying to move those towards a better relationship. But the thing is, there's a lot of demands on my time now, so I have to be careful on how I'm doing it. So I'm doing a lot of group activities. One of those is I go to Top Golf once a month. Now it'd probably be twice a month here pretty quick as I start to build this out. But it's a way to
Okay.
get 6 people and we just all hang out. But I'm strategic about who I'm inviting.
Yeah.
And then we sit down and they start again. I'm the connector because I'm throwing the party, and then people are
Yeah.
connecting. I'm connecting. There's business that's done. There's new
Yeah.
connections that are made, and new opportunities that are had at these things. And I'm at the center of it. And that's my goal, is to be at the center of as many opportunity gatherings as I can be part of, because that's just the game that I like to play. It works well for me. Same thing with the mixers that we're throwing. It's, we're the kid throwing the party. We actually have somebody that is going to be running a booth for us. I've had 3 of these, 2 of these, and then I had a
Mhm.
BNI mega mixer that we did. But so I've had 3 mega mixers here in town this year, and I haven't had a booth at any of them, which seems crazy, right? Right?
Yeah.
It seems crazy,
Yeah.
but we ran across a lady that she's a professional booth attendee kind of person that acts as a sales
Nice.
rep for your company. So she's going to be doing
Yeah.
that at the event on Thursday, the first time that we've done this. And we're looking to see how many, consultations that we can book from that. Again, trying to, really double, triple, quadruple down on what it is that we're doing as far as effectiveness and ROI goes, which I think
Mhm.
we can get to. But I'm always open to new opportunities. There's, of course, well, maybe you don't know, but I have co-hosts, but I have 6 co-hosts. I'm
Yeah.
actually adding a 7th, which is just a guest co-host, which is a once in a while. And I'll be looking for
Yeah.
some folks to fill that space for me, so that I can
Mhm.
expand my network, but they don't necessarily have a monthly appearance on
Right.
the podcast as a co-host. They're just
Yeah,
kind of
have
like
them
a
on the
fill
schedule
in.
long term. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a once in a while kind of a thing. So, but that's a way for me to expand my network as well, getting
Mhm.
into these pockets of folks that can go out there and really kind of be brand ambassadors for the Let's Talk Business
Mhm.
podcast, and then help grow our community. But yeah, so I think, to be honest, I haven't even really scratched the surface on what's possible with the Let's Talk Business podcast. I've started
Mhm.
to, but there's so much more potential, and it keeps growing. So it'll be interesting to see. But all top of funnel stuff, I'm trying to get
Yeah.
better at, stepping that down into actual business. But the business does come, and when people generally do business with me, they're excited. They're like, oh, now's the time. And they got a
Yeah.
big smile on their face, and they're ready to move. They've been waiting for it, and
Mhm.
they're moving on it. So, and that's a great feeling. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I
Yeah, it
got you.
is.
It's like they want to come into that world.
Right. Yeah, and they're already sold. By the time they get on the call with
Oh
you,
yeah.
and I have a similar model where they typically don't purchase from me for 8 months after they've met me the first time. So those that do purchase it, it's 8 months later because they get to see the authority that I got to build the value along the way, whether it's through social media or through connection calls or whatever the case is. Usually takes about 8 months and then they hire me, right? Now mine's a high ticket product, and so yours is technically high ticket too, but it also like saves them a bunch of money, at the same time. And so I I think it's perfect for what you're doing, and you are the quintessential example of build your own stage. You've built like 17 stages, you know what I mean? That you get to invite people to, whether it's Top Golf or the podcast or the event, and you get to be that connector, that nucleus for everybody. And naturally, business is going to pass through you too on the way to
Yeah.
everybody else.
I think that's a great model too. I mean, if business can pass through you, you win.
Mhm.
No matter what happens, you're the one that helped make that connection, and they're going to be forever grateful for that type of situation. I guess unless it's a bad one, right? That goes really, really bad. But the heart,
Yeah.
you had the right heart going into it.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I love that. Another thing that I just joined a group called Provisors as well, and they're a different group, and the different target, as far as referrals and stuff go. But they're going to add to my networking as well. And on the podcast, I do this thing once a month now where I bring BNI members in, 2 of them, into the podcast studio. We just did our first one this past Monday, and I just have a chat with them. What do you do? And then how long you been in BNI? What's that doing for you? What are the good things? What are the bad things? Right. We just kind of get into that. It's about a 10-minute conversation per person. So 20 minutes, we're done in the studio. I'm going to do the same thing with Provisors. So again, there's a lot of content out on the internet and YouTube about BNI, but a lot of it's kind of the how-to. Well, this is the testimonials area, but it's also a bit of how-to, and it's a bit of, okay, well, if you own a maid cleaning company and you're interested in business networking, this is going to show up on your search results. And then, you're going to learn about, what this maid cleaning or this cleaning company is doing in BNI. And I'm the one that's having the conversation. I'm starting that, and I'm facilitating it. And it's Crükus virtual staffing. So if there's a mind, you know what I mean? So we're building that trust up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, and I'm pretty good at YouTube. So this is gonna take off as well. But again, being the kid throwing the party at a high level was something that, you're talented at. I think is a great way to do business, but always looking to create 24/7 content if you can, which is why YouTube is so awesome. But then be the kid throwing a party and give everybody something that they're excited about coming. When I invite people to come to the podcast studio, they're legit excited to come, and then they're nervous when they're there. And you tell me, you just tell me if you're going to start a relationship and somebody's excited to come and they're nervous to have a conversation with you because they're excited about being there, is that a good thing for you? Absolutely, it's a good thing. That's a way to have a conversation at a high level to build that know, like, and trust factor extremely fast. So that's why I like doing it. I imagine there's some of the same reasons you're doing it, because people are excited to come on your podcast and get the exposure to have the conversation, create 24/7, 365 content, and grow their network. So I just see it as a win, when you can be the one throwing the party like we're doing.
Man, and I'll add on what you said earlier about them finding, looking for that maid cleaning service, and then they find your podcast. What I love about that is when they see that owner talk about their business, it's not like a canned elevator pitch. It's a answer to a question that you asked that comes out so much more natural, so much more genuine. You know what I mean? And then there's a real connection there versus a commercial popping up or an ad popping up. This is their real and raw response to a question that maybe was a tough question, or maybe they got excited about because it's their zone of genius, or you know what I mean? And that comes through when it's organic like that. And that's why I love podcasting, because you get, once you warm them up, your guest up, you get such genuine answers versus the canned stuff they read over their note cards 20 times and then they did from stage or in a commercial or in an ad. It's completely different when it's I call it passive content, to where you can record content, chop it up into a reel, and you're basically your most genuine self in that moment. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny because we do I like to loosen my guests up before the show, right? Because they come in typically a little bit nervous, so we just kind of joke around, we have some fun or whatever before. And I've been thinking that maybe we should like put that on as like the pre-show that's actually streamed live on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever else. I just haven't done that on the tech side because that's a whole other challenge that would need to be dealt with. But it is a good time you get to see behind the curtain kind of a thing, and people warm up to that, and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't know Mark was that funny. You know what I mean? But you get to see behind the curtain a little bit and get to know people on different angle, I guess.
Yeah, and we've had some of our best opens or intros on a live because we're in that little waiting period. We get a few people on or whatever, and we're just chopping it up. That's why I always tell Elle and Nika when she's producing is like, hey, record right away. Don't worry about recording the rapport, because honestly, some of the best stuff comes from there. When we're talking about family and friends and what we're doing this weekend, and it's like, oh yeah, I got that opportunity because this is my business and this is what I do, and it's like, oh, we should have been recording that whole time. It's like,
yeah, we've had those
a few
moments
times,
too.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, we're wrapping up here, but last question I'll ask you. I'm big on legacy and understanding what it means to everyone and what legacy they want to leave behind. So can you answer that for me?
Legacy meaning for my kiddo. I think that, next generation is super important to me. I've taken a bit of a radical approach in my upbringing with Brooke in that, non-traditional schooling, homeschooling, but really kind of an unschooling attitude. But she's actually been working since she was 5 years old. She's had her own business, pet walking and pet sitting, and she's had her own money. Which means when we go to the store and if she wants something, as long as it's okay, like, you can't, there's certain things you don't want your kids buying, but as long as it's okay, then yeah, she can absolutely buy those kinds of things. So she's had that work ethic, since she was very, very little, and now moving into a more mature version of that, where, I'm looking to build a team around her so that she can, be a managed social media service to help companies with that at low cost. Beautiful. Using overseas labor, but overcoming the grammar side of it, which that's the third world countries for first world grammar doesn't necessarily work. So you got to have a solution for that. And that's what we've got with her. So that's the legacy side. Is I want Brooke to have a different approach and a different attitude towards earning a living. It does not have to be working for somebody else. You can go out and create what you want. You just got to surround yourself with the right people. You got to be open to the information, and you got to work your ass off. And don't be afraid to do any of those things.
I love it, brother. Fantastic answer. And I love how you're involving your daughter in entrepreneurship and unschooling too. My wife's a tutor for homeschool kids, and it's very much the culture in those homes. Well, that's going to be about it for us. I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you coming on the show, dropping some value, as well as the tidbits about networking and everything. I think we uncovered a lot of what's working in your business. And as always, everybody, let's get building.